What's up, Comic-Con at home? This summer, all roads lead to Fear Street, which is good for us because that led us right here to this very special panel. I'm your moderator, Terry Schwartz from Netflix Geeked, and joining me is the dream team behind the Netflix original film trilogy, Fear Street. So without further ado, joining me are director extraordinaire Leigh Janiak, very exciting people. Star Kiana Madeira, who plays our Scream Queen Dina.
Uh-oh.
Why, uh-oh?
I don't know.
Olivia Scott Welch as the badass heroine Sam.
Thanks, guys.
Benjamin Flores Jr. as the Konami Code-loving Josh.
Oh, wow.
And, of course, author of the Fear Street novels and the man who has gifted us with nightmares that have literally lasted our entire lives, the icon, R.L. Stine. Thank you all for joining us.
Yes.
Well, congratulations on Fear Street. This is the first time we've gotten all of you together to talk about the Fear Street trilogy since the movies came out on Netflix. So we're going to celebrate their release in this panel by hearing all the behind the scenes scoop and talk about the best kills. There are so many, and show some never before seen treats. So, of course, spoiler warning ahead, we're going to get into all the good stuff.
Sweet. So
Nice.
we can talk about, we can spoil.
Yeah.
So Leigh, first question for you. I'm curious, why was the TV meets film bingeable trilogy format the approach you wanted to take to adapting the Fear Street books?
Well, it was kind of, we didn't know exactly how to do what we were going to do. One of our producers, Peter Chernin, had this idea that we would do this trilogy that we'd release all in one year. But that was kind of as far as he went. And so it became a crazy challenge to figure out, how do we do this? How do we release something that people want to watch in close succession? And that ended up being a cool hybrid of kind of movies and traditional television content.
Now, Bob, you have created so many iconic books, so many iconic book series. When you got this pitch, what makes the idea of adapting Fear Street into a trilogy of films so intriguing for you?
I will tell you that the most exciting part of this whole thing has been the reaction of people when they found out that there were Fear Street movies. I've been amazed. For a long time, I'm on Twitter. Every day I would get, why aren't you doing a Fear Street movie? Why isn't there a Fear Street movie? For years, right? And then finally, when we announced it and when the trailers came out, the reaction is just, well, you don't get this kind of reaction for a book, believe me. You don't. The reaction to the movie, people say, I waited my whole life for this. I can't breathe. I can't do anything. I'm waiting for this. It's a miracle. It's really, for me, that's been the most exciting part. It's just been the reaction that the films came out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Also, I just want you reading these hyper Twitter responses forever as we can have that be its own panel. That's incredible.
Yes. Yeah, it's good for my ego, I'll tell you.
Yeah. Now, of course, we cannot talk about Fear Street without talking about the gloriously gruesome kills in this movie. Leigh, you are a mad genius. I am still traumatized by the bread slicer death, but okay, let's get into it. So I'm going to start with our three incredible leads, Kiana, Olivia, and Benji. Each of you pick, and we'll start with you, Kiana. What is your favorite of the most insane kills in this movie?
Oh, I mean, the bread slicer kill for Kate in movie 1 is just, I've seen it probably 6 times now, and every time I just cringe, it's hard to watch. Yeah. Especially because Julia, who plays Kate, is such an amazing actor, and we love Kate as a character. Yeah. So it's one of those scenes where you know you're in a grocery store and you kind of get a quick shot of the bread slicer, but it's one of those moments where it's worst case scenario. You see it there and you're like, this would never happen. And then it does happen. And then also Leigh didn't shy away from showing, it's there's a special shot on her head going through it. There was no cutaway, there was no, and then the blood splatter, I think that death scene is iconic. It's amazing and also terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. And you keep going back to it too. Even in the third movie, you're flashing back. It's no, I remember. I remember.
Exactly.
I didn't lose memory of it. It's in my head every night.
It scarred me. I'll never forget seeing it.
the amazing thing is, it only lasts 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
but it's,
The whole thing is 2 seconds.
yep.
Yeah.
It's just memorable.
Yeah, just
Longest 2 seconds, best 2 seconds.
yes.
How about you, Olivia? Did you have a favorite or a most intense one to shoot?
Is it bad if I say mine?
No,
I was
of course
like, I
not.
thought mine was so cool, and it's the first thing you told me about the movies. Leigh was like, I really want you to look at these movies. I'd love for you to audition for them. Your friends are gonna drown you in a lobster tank, and it's gonna be awesome. And I didn't know anything else about the movies at all. And I was like, what? And yeah, so I feel like there was so much anticipation up until filming it, because that was literally the first thing I knew about the movies. And I think it's such a cool, that's another thing with the grocery store of like, you're in this grocery store and there's like the scene of you and Fred talking, you and like Josh and Simon talking next to the tank, and you're like, oh, it's just the set.
Just there.
And then when it quick zooms on the tank,
Yeah.
and you're like, I got this. And you're like, wait a minute. Is she gonna drown her in a lobster tank? And then we do.
I think it's important also to mention just that you did all of your own kind of
Yeah,
stunt
I
work
did all my
and
own
drowning
stunts
for that scene, which is crazy. We dunked her for a good 8 hours, I would
Yeah.
say.
Oh
my.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yep.
But it was fun. I liked being under the water. It was warm.
I'm glad they made it as comfortable as possible for your drowning sequence.
You're like, no, it's heated. I was like, great. Yeah, great.
And how about for you, Benji? I mean, you were witness to a lot of crazy deaths in this movie as well.
Yeah, I actually had to be there too, like on set as they were happening and watch them. For me though, watching the movie again, I like the very first kill in the mall.
Oh, nice.
That it just sets the tone, and it's like it starts off already so like high end. Like he just comes in and just gets her.
Destroys her.
Yep.
Just gets
Also
her.
super emotional. Last night, like Maya, when she realizes
And she says his name.
realizes that it's Ryan.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh! And she's like, "You're my friend,"
And her
it's so
voice like
sad.
breaks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he gets shot. I feel like just that whole sequence is probably my favorite because it just sets the tone for the movie. Like you don't know what to expect, and it's crazy already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, Leigh, again, that's just from the first movie. We haven't even gotten to the crazy kills in the second movie and the third movie, of course. But, you know, I'm curious for you, Leigh, when you're coming to this, you obviously have the wealth of novels to pull from and all the inspiration from there, but even talking about that opening scene, some clear Scream love that we're riffing off of, and you have a lot of fun playing homage to a lot of classic slashers and horror movies. So can you talk about one kill in particular where you had the most fun bringing that inspiration and creating something new and unique for this trilogy?
Yeah, I think that Benji talking about that opening kill with Maya and Heather in the mall is kind of a perfect thing to talk about because obviously we're really stealing from Scream there, or paying homage, let us say. And that to me was really exciting because we could go back, we could look at the 90s movies, we would know immediately as an audience like what movie we were in. And then to me, the important part of that sequence is she takes his mask off. So we see that moment, we see them connecting, we realize that there's this kernel of like, oh, this is the person I know really well, why are they murdering me, what's happening? And I hoped that that was kind of the moment that the audience realized that we're in a whole different ball game. And oh right, we're inside of Fear Street, this iconic thing that Bob has created where anything can happen. So yeah.
Well, I also think that scene in the mall in the bookstore in the beginning is the closest scene to a Fear Street book because there's so many scenes in Fear Street where you have the girl, she's there, she's so vulnerable, she's all alone in this mall, it's dark, and the viewer or the reader is ahead of her. The viewer knows that she's in a lot of trouble and she isn't yet. And that's what creates a lot of suspense all the time in these books. And this is very close to it. She's there alone. Suddenly there's a sound, there's something moves, and the viewer knows what's going on, but she doesn't. And it makes it all that more horrifying.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I'll also say, going back and rewatching that scene, having watched the full trilogy, it plays so completely differently. Even all the little clues that you had in there up through like the grate not closing the whole way. And even that scene at the end where Nick Good walks in, it's our first introduction to him in the first movie, but plays completely differently when you know how the story plays out and what that means to him. So,
And also I would say the book is like really important because we introduced that in the first moment, and then that's ultimately the thing that ends up saving Dina's life in the third movie, her little, book bulletproof vest, and the first evil thing there. So that's one of my favorite moments in the entire trilogy.
Yeah, I love that too.
that's the power of a book to save you.
For some reason, they changed my name on the book, so suddenly I'm Robert Lawrence. I don't know how that happened. Yeah, but it was great to see them there.
Yeah.
That's a perfect segue, Bob, because, obviously we've created something new, a lot of inspiration taken from your books, but, we wouldn't have the Fear Street trilogy movies without the Fear Street novels. So looking back at those and the stories you've created, what do you think the best kill you ever wrote in a Fear Street book was? Do you have a favorite?
No one ever asked me that question before.
Really?
I have to tell you. No one ever said, what's your favorite kill? Not everyone likes killing teenagers. I mean, a lot of people like to kill teenagers, but not everyone. Here's my favorite. Here's one I'm really proud of. It's from a very recent Fear Street called The Lost Girl. And it takes place behind a horse stable. And this girl is watching as these two men drag her father out, and they tie him on his back to the ground. They have stakes on the ground, and they tie him on his back. And then they pour honey over him and oats, honey and oats all over him. And then they open the stable doors, and they have these starving horses inside.
All right.
Oh, you're enjoying this. You're enjoying this.
Are you
What?
The horses come running out and to eat the honey and they devour her father as she watches.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It's not funny. Why are you laughing? It's horrible.
It's horrible.
That is just like
That has to be one of my best kills, I think.
honey
That
and
is
the oats is a
amazing.
Yeah, that
super
is
like
next
It's
level.
so specific.
crucial detail
Yes.
of how to kill somebody. Let's just get some
Oh my
starving
God.
horses.
Wow, that's awful.
Thought process too, to be like, we're not going to feed these horses so that they eat a human.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
That is incredible. When I asked that question, I was ready for anything and yet somehow still unprepared for that answer.
I'm shocked.
Well, I try.
That's why you are the R.L. Stine. That's why you gifted us all of this.
Don't get too nice. No, really, I can't take it.
Well, Leigh, I wanted to ask you another question because I've seen you talk about how what made the Fear Street books resonate to you growing up and loving them was kind of the edgy quality to them, that you had the kills and the blood and it was sexy and kind of had that edge. So how did you take that edgy quality that you loved and bring them to the movies while also kind of upping the ante on the slasher movies that inspired you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was so daunting and so scary when the producers approached me to do this because, as I've said, I grew up reading the books, was a teenager, I loved them so much, and there's just so much happening in them that it was like, how do we do this? And one of the things for me was just relying on my memory of the experience of reading them and what that meant to me. So that was kind of always the barometer as we were writing and figuring things out was does this feel true to the experience that I felt, how I felt as a teenager reading these, and being able to keep that element of fun along with all of the other stuff. And then ultimately, these are slasher movies. So it felt like what we needed to do was, like you said, up the ante, so to speak. Living in an R-rated place was really important to me because I think when you're doing a slasher movie, you've got to have blood, you've got to have the crazy deaths, and so that's kind of where we landed.
Now, you also have talked about how you play around with the idea of like horror movie tropes and the rules of horror movies. So for Kiana, Olivia, and Benji, can you talk about some of your favorite ways that the trilogy has played around or even broken some of those tropes and rules that we know that are kind of iconic for horror movies?
Yeah, I mean, there's honestly so many. The one that's standing out to me right now in this moment is, you know, there's this trope, bury your gaze, that we've seen in the horror genre in the past, and I really feel like this trilogy takes that and completely flips it on its head. You know, at the center of this trilogy, there's a queer love story between two women, and I think that is so refreshing. I've never seen that done before, and it really is the driving heart of the entire journey. And also, along with that, you know, Shadyside is a town of outsiders and people who, you know, have been placed in boxes and been told that they're always going to get the short end of the stick, and they've always faced oppression in so many different ways. And so those are the heroes of this trilogy, and those are the people we're rooting for. And I just think that's so special. And, you know, I feel like there's so many people who are underrepresented on screen who can now watch these films and see themselves being the heroes of their own story. And, you know, we have people of color at the lead. We have a queer love story. There's just so many different ways that it's refreshing and about time.
Yeah, especially in 94 and 78, like each character fits such a mold. Like it's like, you're like freak, geek, cheerleader. You know what I mean? Like it's like, where it's like, you know, and everyone's got like this very specific mold that they fill, and then in the 70s movie as well. And then it's like you start off as your stereotype, and then it's like as the movie goes on, it gets like broken down every scene. Yeah. And that was the coolest. And then like as an actor to get to play with those arcs and things like that, and like take those things and figure out what about horror, like what's tropey about those characters, and like infuse those things, and then also do the process of breaking down those characters was the best.
And Olivia, I'm sure you really nerded out over that too, because I know you are a huge horror movie buff. You are obsessed.
I'm obsessed. This was a dream project for me. Literally, I've said, I was like, I'll retire. I better than this. I've tapped out at this point in time. Yeah.
And Benji, I wanted to give you a chance to answer too, if you wanted to add.
Yeah, I just think with Fear Street, it's not like a typical slasher movie. I mean, it's got a real like core to it, and for me especially, I just love the fact that it's like, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, what you told you can be, or what you believe you can be, like the journey that we go through together, and all the trials and tribulations that we go through, really like help you find the hero in you. Like for Josh, like he's always been this quiet loner, but he's always had these conspiracies, and he's got this great mind, but he's just been scared to express that to people. But through these, you know, through the adversity of trying to defeat the curse and everything, I feel like he found his hero in himself. And he actually feels more comfortable to stand up and express himself more. So I hope people take that away from the movie, and I hope people really like see themselves in each and every one of the characters that we play, and understand that, you know, you can be anything, you can stand up for anything, and it doesn't matter where you come from or what you look like or what you think you should be doing or anything.
And you don't have to die in the first 20 minutes.
You don't have to die in the first 20 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But you do have to die.
Everyone does have to die.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
You do have to get chopped to bits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Bob, I wanted to ask you, you are someone who has had a massive impact on the horror genre for the past 4 decades. So coming from that vantage point, I'm curious, what have been some recent horror trends or approaches to the genre that have been really interesting to you?
Oh, I always look for horror films that are funny at the same time. And I love all the scream elements in the Fear Street movies, because those Scream movies really did that. They were a great combination, because they weren't just horror, they were very knowing at the same time, and very meta, and they were funny. And I really appreciate those. There's some of Joss Whedon's work. Cabin in the Woods, do you know that film?
Oh yeah, the ending of that movie.
But the whole premise, because you think there they are, teenagers trapped in a cabin in the woods, that old story, and then it's nothing that you think it is. It's absolutely something totally different. And I love that in a horror movie.
I was watching like, oh, Cabin in the Woods, like Bob said. They're just teenagers. But at the end, I'm like, what the hell is going on? What just happened?
like 16 turns along the way. Agreed.
Yeah.
Now, Kiana, Olivia, and Benji, we have talked a lot about the first two movies, but I think one of the things that was such a delight when I realized that's where the trilogy was going was 1666 and having you all play the characters in that movie and learn Sarah Fier's story through the lens of seeing familiar faces to we, the viewer. It just added that deeper additional layer of emotional connection to it, which was so fun. I'm curious, what was the most challenging part about playing those characters in 1666 as well as in part one? I imagine the accents were a lot to get right.
So we started working on the accents when we first started filming part one, 1994, because it was really important to us and Leigh that, you know, the accents were a part of us and not just something that we're placing on top of the characters that we're playing. So we really were given that amount of time to kind of, you know, allow them to be dipped into us as actors, and I think that really helped. But you know, definitely adding a dialect to your performance is a challenge. Along with that, I would say there's nothing really casual about these films where it's all so crazy and the stakes are really high. And the 1600s is just like that, you know. They're so intense emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. So as actors, really portraying those characters, we wanted to do our best to make them as authentic as possible, and that involved really diving into the circumstances and, you know, giving it everything that we had, and doing it all day, every day eventually takes its toll. So there were moments where, you know, we would get back to our hotel room and be like, wow, I'm super tired, but you know, at the end it was extremely fulfilling, so it all worked out. But yeah,
I was down there for the scenes in the village, and I couldn't believe the village. It was so authentic. It was amazing. So incredible. There we are on a pasture in Atlanta with, you know, 120 degrees, and there is this incredible colonial village. And they said the guys who built it went up to New England and brought down wood from New England so that it would be authentic. And they, you know, they didn't have flathead nails in those days. And so they didn't build these houses with flathead nails.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's just incredible to me. The care that was taken. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Incredible. Olivia and Benji, do either of you have a favorite or most challenging part about playing those dual performances?
No, I think doing the two characters was definitely a challenge, but it was super exciting, and it was cool because like you were so communicative with all of us about the characters and like the parallels between them and stuff, and so I think that was exciting for everybody. When we started 1666, it was like when we got to set, we were like, oh, what's your character like? And like, how are they similar to the characters we've been playing? And I think it was cool. I won't speak for them, but for Emily McCabe, like, and Sadie, when they came in and played the 1600s characters first, and they got to like work from that place, it was just really exciting to play the two characters and like figure out the similarities and figure out the differences and find the parallels in the story and like the little moments that were the same. And yeah, for like Sam and Dina, we get to see like the beginning of Sarah and Hannah's relationship, which is something you don't get to see with them. You get to see them in like a time of breakup and strife. So I think it was so fun for us to get to have like sweet scenes together and like show the beginning of a relationship. And then you get to be more invested even in Sam and Dina because you've seen us like begin a very sweet romance.
To Bob's point about like everything being authentic, I feel like that made it super easy filming 1600s, filming all the movies, honestly. Like I feel like everything around us, our surroundings, the wardrobe, the props that we use, the set was just so authentic. So it was super like easy for me to just like get into character, and the accent, like we've been prepping that. We were working on the accent like months before we had to film the 1600s. So by the time we did film it, it was like natural for us. Like at first that was what we were like a little bit anxious about. I remember we were all like, I don't know, Leigh wants us to use these accents. I might have to just talk normal, but no, but we figured it out, and it was super easy. But the most challenging part for me was probably having to do school during all this, because I was in school at the time, and when we would have breaks, I wouldn't. I would have to go to do school, and it was hot. So
now that all 3 movies are out, Leigh, we've talked a little bit about how they completely encourage and reward re-binging and re-watching. But what are some things you would shout out to people as they start their second watch through, either in terms of character development or Easter eggs that you think that they really should keep an eye out for?
I think my favorite one is the mixtape that Dina makes for Sam, because on it she's written a lyric from the Pixies song that plays at the end of movie 1, which is "Hey," and it says, "Hey, must be a devil between us," which I think has a whole next level kind of, once you get to the end of movie 3 and you say there's literally, it was the devil that was keeping us apart this whole time. So that for me is my favorite. There's also good stuff if you look back and you see kind of adult Nick Good in the 90s and how Ted played Nick Good in the 70s and he got hurt, and then Ash reflected that back in 94 when we did that. And there's lots of other little things too. There's a ton of also, this is no one's gonna know by rewatching this, but we built in tons of things with our crew members. So there's a lot of like crew member jersey like names on there, the names of like kids that die in the 70s. So there's lots of little things. If people start like looking into the credits and kind of things like that, they'll be able to find it across the movies. Yeah. And the other thing that's really cool, I think, is we tried to create moments that we saw over and over again in the 3 movies. So if you look back, you can kind of pinpoint, oh, here's that moment in this movie where a scream happens off screen, and then the characters look back at camera in the exact same way. Or like the way that we reuse time and place. So we see how we're in the mall, and then we're in the village, and then we're in the camp, and it's all the same space. So yeah, I think there's a lot of that.
Even that opening scene, which is the death right in front of the tree, and then we see that kind of repeated throughout all 3 movies as well. Love that, love that. I want to play a quick round of Fear Street this or that. So the game is simple. I'm going to give you 2 options. You say which one you would go with. Kiana, I'm starting with you.
Cool.
Would you rather be a witch in 1666 or a band kid in 1994?
Band kid in 1994.
So you don't get murdered?
Yep. So I don't get murdered. Yeah, it's a little more chill.
Just a little bit.
A little more chill.
All right, Olivia, this is leaning into you being a huge horror movie buff, but this or that, Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street?
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Why?
I just have a special place in my heart. I literally love all of them, like 1 through 7, for various reasons. I think they're all equally incredible. Some people will disagree. But like the 3rd one is a banger. The 7th one, an all-time classic. I just love them. I think they're great. They have the best deaths. They're so creative. I love them.
Incredible. All right, Benji, for you, would you rather be possessed or be cursed?
Oh, goodness. Why? I think those are like the same. Possessed or cursed? I would rather be cursed than possessed, because at least if I'm cursed, I can deal with it. I can deal with the curses, but like possession, I have no control over that. I don't know what's going on. I'm possessed. But if I'm cursed, I feel like I'd just be like, here we go. Yeah, it's because I'm cursed. Any problems that happen in life, I got an easy, blanket to just blame everything on.
Very Nick Good of you. Yeah. Very Nick Good of you.
Yeah.
Leigh, now this one's inspired by all the incredible music you put into this and how curated the soundtrack you made, not only for the film, but I know you made some mixtapes for the cast. Yeah. So with that setup, this or that, Iron Maiden or Alice Cooper?
Oh my gosh, Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden, for sure. I think because it's more kind of like things that I grew up listening to. Like Alice Cooper was a little bit earlier, I would say. So I have to go with Iron Maiden.
Now, Bob, as you can see, these are challenging this or that. We're stripping all the fun away. And I know this is a leading question for you, but I'm curious, do you have a preference, Fear Street or Goosebumps?
Oh.
I'd rather be possessed.
I don't think that was the question.
Such a good answer.
I don't think so.
All All right, thank you all for indulging me. Now, as promised, we brought a special treat for all of you out there who need a laugh after being terrorized by 3 Fear Street movies, bloopers. So I think only Leigh has seen these, so I can't wait to see everyone's reaction to them. Let's take a look at the bloopers.
Oh, it's so good.
I haven't seen this.
Knife broke.
All right, cut.
Hey, Mark. Look at me now. Look.
Right now, we're on the set of Fear Street 1994.
Are you or are you?
That's me.
Ooh, make you a believer. You gotta dig a little deeper.
Blowing. Do that again.
Going back out.
That was nice. Hold on, I'm sorry. All right, okay, I need you to stay calm, all right?
This is so fun.
We'll fix that in post.
I've been on my hustle every day and night. I'm flexing like a shark with an appetite. Look at me now, look at me now. Ow! Oh! Ah!
I'm so sorry.
What the f?
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
We did it.
We are on the set of Fear Street, 1978.
3, 2, 1. What's your hold?
Watch your
All right.
Holy
Hey now.
oh my God.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Ready, action. You know, he broke the fourth wall.
It's really easy to work with people that you feel like are your friends.
Yes.
And the cool thing about this is we've had time to actually grow real relationships together. Well, I just wanted to make it seem like we like each other, even though we might not.
What's up? First day of 1666.
I saw. What's her name?
Satan.
All right, let's try one. We're looking for
Is it too much of that guy? I'll try a different guy.
Hannah and I, we didn't do this.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
They know you're different.
Step away.
Someone laugh. I heard Leigh laugh.
Okay, go again.
Oh, man, that was
Because you were
amazing.
like, you're not in pain enough.
I know.
I would try
I
to be in
know.
pain, and Leigh would be like,
I was like, have you ever been hurt before?
I was like, yes, but I'm
It
an
was very
internal
nurturing
responder.
of me as a director, I think. Totally. Yeah.
To heckle me from beyond.
Wow.
Man, I want to see more.
To be fair, it looked like you had a blast making
Yes.
these movies, as terrifying as they are. Now, sadly, that's all the time we have today. So Leigh, Kiana, Olivia, Benji, Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us here. And of course, thank you to you, Comic-Con at Home, for hanging out with us for this panel. The Fear Street Trilogy are all currently streaming globally on Netflix. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.